The amendment be agreed to, and I call the member for Lyons.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And look, I'll give full marks to the member for Parramatta. We've had our differences in the past, but the detail and the work that she's gone to is a great reflection and an insight, Deputy Speaker, into what small business goes through every day of their lives. She has gone through that in so much detail to highlight highlight exactly what small business and the whole point of repeal day today. And if you remember back
Order. A member for Lyons will take his seat.
To ask a question.
Do you accept an intervention?
No, we've got to get through
The member for Lyons.
Thank you. That in 2007, Deputy Speaker, if I could take you back there, that those opposites were going to be the one-in, one-out administration. Well, 21,000 new regulations later, not the most notable indeed of the broken promises of the Gillard-Rudd years, but nevertheless a broken promise. And they adhere to a thinking that Ronald Reagan put it best. I think that it says, if it moves, Deputy Speaker, tax it. If it keeps moving, we'll regulate it. And if it stops moving, well, let's subsidise it. You know, this approach was clearly rejected by the Australian people in September last year. The first ever federal government repeal day will greatly benefit the smoother flow of business in my home state of Tasmania and my electorate of Lyons. Bad and redundant legislation will get government out of the lives of families and reduce the cost of living. But what is it? What is it about those opposite, both Labor and the Greens, that demand to have control and more control over people's lives? What sort of ideology rejects the notion of personal responsibility, that seeks to stifle innovation and enterprise? The Australian Greens, the member for Melbourne's party, was born in my home state, the party that was born in my home state. Indeed, it was born, and I've said it before, of honourable and noble intent. But to listen to the member for Melbourne today advocating an ideology of control, to have a hand in every corner of people's lives, to control the conversation with a belief that we know best what is for you and your family, that government knows best, was truly something to behold. Deputy Speaker, the Liberal Party believes that government does not know best, that families and individuals make the best choices. We believe in personal responsibility. The more government gets out of people's lives, simply the better. Regulations and boundaries are indeed important, but not regulations that stifle entrepreneurship, that make Australia less competitive, are a burden on our nation, on our businesses, and are a cost to the family budgets. This first repeal day is indeed a worthwhile and overdue commitment to get rid of redundant and inefficient legislation. 10,000 unnecessary and counterproductive pieces of legislation, 50,000 pages of unnecessary and costly legislation and regulations will go. Removing a burden of compliance on business, community groups and households. $700 million this year, next year and every year. Deputy Speaker, Cliff Partridge runs an aged care facility across my electorate of Lyons in Tasmania, at Deloraine, at the Mayshore facility in Swansea on the east coast, and South East Community Care in Sorrel.
Great places.
He will tell you how much easier life will become for his business with the government's streamlining of the pricing process for residential aged care. There has been a simplification of the proposed accommodation pricing process, and the government has increased the threshold for accommodation prices requiring approval to $550,000 from $455,000. This is real change. This will lead to annual savings of $750,000 in compliance costs for aged care providers. Cliff says that the previous regulation on accommodation pricing created a huge workload for aged care facilities. He said that it was more demanding than being in the hotel industry, where operators had to justify why they were charging every particular room rate. Building assessment procedures remain an ongoing issue of concern for aged care operators, an over-regulated system that demands reassessment of an entire facility every time a minor alteration is made to the premises. Charities, Deputy Speaker, will benefit. Even today, Jan Davis, the CEO of the Tasmanian Farmers and Graziers Association, welcomed the repeal bill. Even today she has highlighted the disproportionate burden of regulations that primary producers face every day. And a practical example of how they will be better off: importers, for example, of agricultural chemicals, and the last time I looked they are used by primary producers, and veterinary medicines such as pet worm tablets, household weakeners, agricultural fertilisers will no longer need to re-register established products that haven't changed. A practical way of reducing costs on farmers and farm businesses. Any rational, sensible person that has anything to do with business or indeed been part of a family would agree that getting rid of unwanted, redundant legislation is indeed a good thing. Repeal Day is symbolic of the difference between ideology. On one side are political parties who want to control and tell us how to think and act, and who want to regulate every nook and cranny of every family's life. The alternative is a party that offers a pathway to personal responsibility that is trying to move closer with this bill today. We are doing what we said we would do. We are well on the way to reducing the red tape burden on small business by $1 billion annually that we committed to during the election, and I commend the Parliamentary Secretary for his diligence and work in putting together this bill today. I commend this repeal bill to you and the House. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.